There are decisions you make in life that no one ever applauds. No one sees you make them. No one knows the weight they carried. No one understands the tears that came before them. But heaven sees, God sees, and sometimes what moves his heart the most are not the loud declarations of faith or the dramatic acts of obedience, but the quiet decisions you made in the dark. Decisions to forgive when you had every reason to be bitter. Decisions to walk away with dignity when you could have stayed and fought in anger. Decisions to remain faithful when all around you, faith was crumbling. And you didn't do it for applause. You didn't do it for recognition. You did it because something deeper in you whispered, "Do what is right, even if no one ever knows you did." And because of that, God is pleased with you, deeply pleased, quietly moved, eternally marking your name with favor. We live in a world that worships visibility, where actions are validated by how many people notice them, where the value of goodness seems to rise only when it is seen, liked, and shared. But God operates on a different scale. He measures not the visibility of your goodness, but the authenticity of it. Not how loud your sacrifice was, but how costly. Not how many witnessed your endurance, but how pure your motives remained when nobody did. He saw you when you swallowed your pride just to keep peace in your family. He saw you when you gave generously out of your own lack. He saw the way you kept quiet instead of exposing someone's faults, protecting their name even while they dragged yours through the dirt. He saw the sleepless nights when you prayed for others instead of demanding prayer for yourself. He saw every act of integrity that cost you more than anyone will ever know. And today, he whispers to your spirit, "Because you did this, I am lifting you up." It may not happen how you expect. The lifting may not come with trumpets or headlines, but it will come with divine timing and undeniable glory. What people overlooked, God is about to highlight. What they dismissed as weakness, heaven is exalting as strength. What they thought didn't matter, your quiet discipline, your quiet mercy, your quiet faithfulness. That is what pleased God most. That is what he is rewarding. You see, God does not just honor big victories. He honors small obediences. The daily yes you said to him in secret is now becoming the reason he is positioning you for something greater in the open. He is not lifting you because you demanded a throne. He is lifting you because you humbled yourself when you could have demanded to be seen. This lifting is not a promotion from man. It is an exaltation from heaven. And no human can block it, because this reward is not the result of competition, it is the result of character. It is God saying, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful with little. Now I will make you ruler over much." So if you've been wondering whether it was worth it, whether staying silent, staying kind, staying faithful in the storm had any value, let this be your answer. Yes, it was not in vain. Heaven recorded it, and now God is moving, not just around you, but for you. You chose obedience over approval. There is a sacred strength in those who choose to obey God when no one is clapping for them, when the applause of the world is withheld, and the crowd calls you foolish, yet still you walk the narrow road. That is the kind of obedience that shakes heaven. The world offers its rewards to those who are seen, noticed, and followed, but heaven stores its treasures for those who are faithful in the quiet, consistent in the unseen, and obedient in the shadows. To choose obedience over approval is to stand against the gravity of human nature. We are wired to want to be seen, to be liked, to be accepted. So when God asks you to do something that may cost you relationships, reputation, or recognition, It's not a light decision. It's a crucifixion of self. And yet, you did it. You chose to follow his voice even when it wasn't popular. You chose truth, even when it meant standing alone. And though people didn't understand, God understood completely. The danger of seeking human approval is that it never satisfies. It demands more and more and gives less and less in return. But obedience? It might cost more in the beginning, but it always yields eternal dividends. And here's what most people miss. When you obey God in the secret places, when your sacrifices are known only to Him, those become the very things He uses to elevate you, not because you earned it, but because you honored Him. Think of Abraham. When God asked him to leave everything familiar behind, he didn't get a round of applause. He got uncertainty, desert winds, and the burden of trust. But his obedience changed the course of history. Or Noah, building an ark when people laughed, mocked, and called him mad, yet his obedience saved a generation. Or Mary, the mother of Christ, accepting divine purpose with the words, "Let it be to me according to your word," even though her obedience cost her comfort, certainty, and reputation. This is the kind of obedience God values, the kind that is not transactional but relational. You didn't say, "I'll obey if you bless me." You said, "I'll obey because I trust you." And that trust pleased God more than you know. You passed the test that few pass, living to please the one who cannot be seen, while ignoring the pressure to please those who are always watching. You must always live to please those who are always watching. When others manipulated, you stayed honest. When others cut corners, you kept your integrity. When the crowd ran toward compromise, you walked toward conviction. You laid down your right to be understood in order to be righteous. You traded popularity for purity. You traded being liked for being led. And that choice, though costly, has brought you into alignment with the favor of heaven. Obedience isn't always grand. Sometimes it's the little decisions that shape your destiny, the small yes whispered in prayer, the quiet no to temptation, the lonely act of kindness no one ever sees. These are the building blocks of spiritual greatness. And though the world may never write your name in lights, God is inscribing it on crowns of glory. Because you chose obedience over approval, heaven is now opening what others tried to shut. You will soon walk into blessings not because you fought for them, but because you obeyed for them. And that obedience has not gone unnoticed. You walked away from what could have destroyed you. There is a moment in every soul's journey when the heart hears two voices. One says, "Stay, it's what you've always known." The other quieter voice says, "Go," before it swallows you whole. And in that moment, the decision is not just about movement, it's about life. Walking away from what's destroying you isn't weakness, it's not failure, it's the beginning of resurrection. You walked away, not because you didn't love deeply, but because you loved God more. You walked away from people who drained your joy, places that dulled your spirit, and cycles that kept repeating like a slow death. And that decision, while painful, was the turning point of your deliverance. So many stay. They stay because it's familiar, because it's easier to live in the pain they know than face the fear they don't. But you chose courage over comfort, and heaven took note. God saw your quiet exit. He saw the nights you cried, wondering if you made the right decision. He saw you grieving what you left, even while knowing you couldn't stay. And He whispered, "Because you did this, I will lift you." You see, walking away doesn't always look heroic. It looks like trembling hands packing bags. It looks like choosing silence over screaming. It looks like breaking your own heart to protect your soul. It looks like letting go of someone you prayed would change, and realizing the only change God was waiting for was yours. Many don't realize that walking away isn't giving up. It's giving God room to step in. When you stay in what God is trying to remove, you block His restoration. But when you step out in obedience, even if it costs you everything familiar, you're placing your future back in His hands. And that is where it belongs. When Lot left Sodom, he wasn't praised. He was running. But his obedience spared him from destruction. When Moses left Egypt, he didn't know he'd be returning as a deliverer. He just knew he couldn't live another day pretending everything was fine. And when Jesus left the crowd to pray alone, he was showing us that sometimes the best way to grow is to separate. You did what few are brave enough to do. You drew a line. You said, "I won't die in a place God never called me to live." You stopped tolerating what was quietly killing you. And by doing that, you didn't just save your future, you honored your calling. Because there are some environments so toxic, so spiritually suffocating, that to stay is to compromise your destiny. Your strength is not in how long you endured, but in the wisdom to leave before the fire consumed everything. God is not disappointed in you for walking away. He is pleased because you trusted Him to catch you on the other side. And now He is preparing to show you why that exit was your elevation. You forgave those who never said sorry. To forgive someone who has apologized is difficult enough, but to forgive someone who never acknowledged your pain, never accepted their fault, and perhaps never even considered your heart, that takes a rare kind of strength. And yet, you did it. You released the bitterness, not because it was fair, but because it was right. You laid down the right to carry anger, not because they changed, but because you chose to. Forgiving without an apology is not weakness. It is one of the most powerful acts of spiritual maturity. It means you no longer allow someone else's actions to control your emotional climate. It means you have chosen peace over poison, freedom over chains, because make no mistake, unforgiveness is a prison. It doesn't trap the one who hurt you, it traps you, and you refuse to stay caged. You opened the door with the key of mercy and walked out. Alone, maybe, but finally free. What many don't understand is that forgiveness is not a denial of pain. It is not saying, "It didn't matter." It's saying, "It mattered deeply, but I refuse to let it define me." Forgiveness is not forgetting what they did. It's remembering it and choosing not to be ruled by it. It's taking back your power by saying, "You can no longer live rent-free in my soul." God saw that moment when you chose grace instead of revenge. He saw you hold your tongue when you could have exposed someone's darkest moments. He saw you cry into your pillow, whispering prayers not just for your own healing, but for the healing of the one who hurt you. And heaven whispered, "This pleases me." When Jesus hung on the cross, bleeding from wounds he did not deserve, surrounded by mockery and betrayal, he said something that still echoes through eternity. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That kind of forgiveness isn't human, it's divine. And when you forgave in silence, you walked in that same divine path. You didn't just protect your peace, you participated in God's plan. Because every time you forgive without demand, you reflect God's heart more clearly than 1,000 sermons. You show the world that healing doesn't come from vengeance, but from surrender. That justice doesn't always mean retribution, but restoration. And here's the mystery. While you were letting go of the offense, God was lifting you. While you were releasing the pain, heaven was recording the sacrifice. Forgiveness is rarely loud. It doesn't come with applause, but it echoes in the courts of heaven louder than any victory shout. It is the cry of the mature, the anthem of the healed, the song of the free. The world tells you to get even. Heaven invites you to go higher. And because you chose the higher road, because you blessed the ones who cursed you, because you let go when you had every reason to hold on, God is now writing a new story over your life. Not one marked by betrayal, but one marked by breakthrough. Not one trapped by wounds, but one released by worship. You stayed humble when you could have fought for recognition. Pride often whispers in the shadows of our success. Make sure they see you. Make sure they know what you've done. Make sure they applaud. It demands validation, applause, and acknowledgement. But humility? Humility quietly says, let God be the one to lift me. Let Him speak for me. Let my actions echo beyond what my words ever could. And that's what you did. You stayed silent when you could have shouted. You walked away from opportunities to promote yourself, choosing instead to let your character speak on your behalf. You allowed God to be your defender when others misunderstood your intentions. You didn't manipulate, twist, or boast. You trusted. Staying humble in a world built on self-promotion is a radical act of faith, and it's rarely celebrated. In fact, humility often feels like invisibility. You work, you love, you serve, but no one seems to notice. And yet, heaven notices. God notices. Because humility is not weakness, it's strength under control. It's choosing to wait on God's timing rather than forcing your way into places you were never meant to stand without Him. The reason humility pleases God so deeply is because it mirrors His nature. Jesus, the most powerful being in all of creation, chose to wash feet instead of demand crowns. He chose silence before His accusers when He could have called down angels. He chose obscurity in a manger rather than royalty in a palace. And when you chose to stay low, to serve quietly, to walk away from recognition, you walked in His footsteps. There's a beauty in being unseen by people but seen by God, because what man overlooks, God honors. And while others may forget your name, heaven writes it in ink. You didn't fight for platforms. You didn't scramble for stages. You didn't crave likes, shares, or public applause. You chose faithfulness in secret. And God, who sees in secret, is about to reward you in the open. Your humility became the soil where God planted promotion. And while others rise quickly and fall hard, your rise will be steady, rooted in integrity, watered by patience, and lifted by grace. You've built something in the dark that is now strong enough to hold the weight of what God is about to place on your life. The truth is, people who promote themselves have to sustain themselves, but those who wait on God's elevation are carried by a force greater than ego. They are carried by favor. You will not have to explain yourself. You will not have to beg for opportunities. You will not have to climb ladders made of compromise, because your humility has already made room for you in places where only God could place you. Homa, Salam, Gue Maklukai. There is nothing louder in the ears of heaven than a humble heart. And because you remain small in your own eyes, God is preparing to make your testimony large in the eyes of others. Not to glorify you, but to glorify the one you trusted when no one else was watching. You gave while you were still in need. There is a kind of generosity that doesn't come from overflow, but from obedience. It's one thing to give when you have plenty. It's another thing entirely to give when you are lacking yourself. When your heart is breaking, when your wallet is light, when your energy is drained, and yet you still extend your hand. That kind of giving echoes eternity, and that's exactly what you did. You gave not because it was easy, but because it was right. While others held back, waiting for comfort to return or resources to increase, you gave from your pain, your scarcity, and even your confusion. You didn't wait for the perfect moment. You simply chose to be a vessel of blessing, even while you were still asking God to bless you. And that choice, though invisible to many, was monumental to heaven. God is not moved merely by the size of the gift, but by the sacrifice behind it. When the widow gave 2 small coins, others may have seen insignificance, but Jesus saw something divine. She gave all she had. Her story is forever recorded, not because of how much she gave, but because of how much it cost her. And in a world that celebrates abundance, God still honors sacrificial hearts. That's what made your giving so powerful. You gave while battling your own needs. You gave encouragement while you were discouraged. You gave your time while your soul needed rest. You gave resources when your account was almost empty. And though no one may have applauded your kindness, God did. In the invisible places, in the silence of your heart, He whispered, "Because you did this, I will lift you." There's something holy about a giving heart, not just generous with money, but generous with compassion, generous with mercy, generous with time, empathy, attention. You were present for others when no one was present for you. You offered words of hope while searching for your own. You carried the burdens of others while your shoulders ached under the weight of your own questions. And you did it not out of pride, but out of purpose. And even when you were tempted to think, "Why do I always give more than I receive?" you kept giving. You refused to let other people's selfishness harden your heart. You resisted the urge to withhold just because you were overlooked. You kept pouring from a place that was still being filled. And that kind of love is not ordinary. It is divine. Scripture teaches us that those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. That God does not forget the labor of love you've shown to His people, that what you do in secret, He will reward openly. And while the world applauds those who shine in abundance, God exalts those who are faithful in sacrifice. He sees the quiet pain behind the smile, the unseen generosity behind the gesture, the internal battles you overcame just to offer peace to someone else. Because you gave while you were still in need, God is now preparing a blessing that matches the weight of your faith, not a recycled blessing, not a borrowed one, but a personalized reward that reflects your heart's posture. You will not be forgotten. The harvest is coming, not because you had plenty, but because you gave from a place of trust. Even when it didn't make sense. You stayed faithful when life felt unfair. There are few trials greater than remaining faithful in seasons where nothing makes sense, when prayers go unanswered, when doors remain closed, when injustice lingers like a fog and the breakthroughs you fasted for still seem far away. In those seasons, many grow bitter, some walk away, others stop believing entirely, but not you. You stayed, not because everything felt good, but because you knew God was still good. You kept worshiping even when your heart was heavy. You kept praying even when it felt like silence was the only reply. You kept trusting even when your plans fell apart and your expectations were shattered. And that choice, that holy resilience, pleased God more than you will ever understand. Faithfulness is not just about doing the right thing when everything is going well. It's about holding on when everything feels wrong. It's showing up when no one notices. It's choosing hope when despair seems more logical. It's believing in promises that feel delayed, defending your faith when doubt is louder. and still standing firm when others would have surrendered. You didn't stay faithful because life made it easy. You stayed faithful because somewhere deep inside your spirit, you knew God was still writing your story. You refused to let pain be the final chapter. You refused to allow unanswered prayers to poison your praise. You walked through the valley with your eyes still lifted toward the hills. And though your soul whispered, "How long, Lord?" your feet said, "I'm not leaving." Your feet said, "I'm not leaving." What you endured was not small. There were nights you cried yourself to sleep. Mornings you woke up wondering if anything would ever change. You carried disappointments that no one else could see, and still you chose faith. Still you walked in obedience. Still you chose to speak life while you battled death internally. And heaven watched, not with indifference, but with immense admiration. The world often rewards results. God rewards faithfulness. And because you did not quit when it hurt, because you did not fold when it was unfair, because you didn't walk away when it would have been easier, God is now preparing to lift you into places you couldn't have reached without the weight of that trial. Your pain has become the soil for your promotion. It's in those quiet, dark seasons, where it's just you, your questions, and your God, that the deepest roots are formed. And you didn't waste that season. You let it refine you. You let it shape your character, humble your heart, and deepen your dependence on Him. You became the kind of person who could be trusted with more because you were faithful with less. God is not only moved by our worship when things go well, He is especially moved by worship offered through tears. And you offered it again and again. You didn't let life's unfairness stop your devotion. And because you did this, God is now preparing to honor you, not because of what you achieved, but because of what you endured without giving up. You chose character when you could have chosen convenience. There are crossroads in life where the easier path glows with temporary comfort and instant gratification. It's the road that asks nothing of your integrity, the path that offers quick solutions, approval from the crowd, and reward without responsibility. Most choose it. Most see nothing wrong with bending their standards a little, just enough to get ahead, just enough to keep the peace, just enough to survive. But you chose character. You chose what was right over what was easy. You chose truth over flattery, accountability over shortcuts, humility over pride. You walked away from opportunities that required you to compromise. You kept your name clean when no one was watching. You told the truth when a lie would have protected your reputation. You showed up with integrity when no one was handing out applause, and heaven stood still. God is never indifferent to the weight of such decisions. He sees every moment where you had to wrestle with the temptation to cut corners, to join the crowd, to get even, to take what you wanted instead of waiting for what was right. You felt the pull of convenience. You heard its seductive voice, but your spirit, anchored in something higher, refused to bow. You said no, not just to a moment, but to a mindset. And in that refusal, you revealed who you really are. Character isn't proven in comfort, it's forged in crisis. It's in the silence of inner conflict, in the secrecy of unseen decisions, that the soul either caves or climbs. You climbed. You chose to remain grounded in values that many consider outdated. You chose to serve rather than dominate, to love rather than manipulate, to surrender rather than control. You didn't just protect your own integrity, you became a reflection of the very character of Christ. This world doesn't reward character quickly. It often overlooks those who choose the high road, but heaven doesn't operate on the world's schedule. While man praises charisma, God crowns character. While the world is impressed with appearances, God is moved by who you are when no one else is looking. You didn't perform, you endured. You didn't seek a spotlight, you stewarded your soul. You didn't try to rise through ambition, you rose through authenticity. And now, because of those small decisions, God is about to make a big move. Your character has prepared a place for you, a place that convenience could never have taken you, a place that shortcuts could never sustain, a place where blessing is not borrowed, but built on the firm foundation of who you are in Him. When others mocked you for taking the long way, God marked you for elevation, because He's not just lifting talent, He's lifting trustworthiness. He's not just promoting capability, He's promoting consistency. And you were consistent in the quiet. That is what pleases Him. Now look back, not with regret, but with reverence. Every choice you made that cost you something, your comfort, your approval, your pride, was not wasted. It was witnessed. The unseen obedience, the silent surrender, the patient endurance, the radical forgiveness, the brave humility, the selfless giving, the unwavering faith, the costly integrity, these were not small acts. They were spiritual revolutions, and they pleased the heart of God. Because you did this, because you chose the path of character, of trust, of faithfulness, God is lifting you now, not by the hands of man, not by the systems of this world, but by His own hand, quietly, steadily, powerfully. He is exalting you in the exact places you were once overlooked. He is pouring favor where you once received silence. He is restoring what was delayed. He is rewarding what was done in secret. You didn't need to force your way in. God is opening the doors for you. You didn't chase the spotlight. God is placing light upon your life. You didn't demand to be seen. God is making you a testament of what happens when someone truly trusts Him. This is your lifting season, not because you shouted, not because you strived, but because you stayed faithful, you stayed true. And now, the one who saw it all is stepping in to finish what He started, with honor, with glory, and with love. Because you did this, God is so pleased with you, and He's lifting you up.